What is up today, YouTube? So, I wanted to skate today, but it is sleeting outside, and my wife actually went to the mall with a friend. She's going to be gone for a couple hours. So I thought, what perfect day to work down here. So today is the video I've been talking about. I said I wanted to make a video working down in the workshop, and I've already deleted 2 videos, but this one I hope is different. The reason I deleted the other 2 is when I really get deep in thought, I stop talking, which doesn't work well for a YouTube video. And the other 2 videos I filmed were things I've never made before. So one was a shelf, a specific kind of shelf, and one was a miter sled for my table saw, which you guys haven't seen yet, but I got a table saw. And it was like more of thinking than talking. But this I've actually made before. So today we are making a kitchen chalkboard. Pretty much it is just a chalkboard that will serve 2 different functions. And by functions I just mean it will be able to be hung or displayed in 2 different ways. The first way is it will be able to stick to a refrigerator by magnets. I've already tested it. I've already made a couple. I know it actually will stick to refrigerators. It was a weird process, but I accomplished it. And then the second way is hanging it, which I think I'm going to try a new way to hang this one because of, I'll show you one I've already done and the issue is it has. But for this project, you will first need just a piece of wood. Doesn't matter what piece of wood you use, depending on your application. So if you want it on a refrigerator, I recommend 1/2 inch thick sanded plywood. Does it need to be sanded? No, but you have to do all the sanding then. So I like sanded plywood. Now a sheet of this stuff, a 4x8 sheet, is $36. You do not need that. You can actually buy pre-cut in the store, and it might be $10 to $15. I don't buy pre-cut, so I don't know. But you can get 32 of these out of one sheet, if you know how to use it right. Actually, you'd probably get 31 because there is some wasted material. But anyway, you're going to need something that will be the actual chalkboard base. Then, I make bottom shelves on mine. I make them out of 1x3s, and I router them to be a bottom shelf. And more or less, this sits down here like this, and there's a groove I cut in that the chalk sits in. You don't have to do this. I like it. I think it's a cool addition. The last thing is molding. Now, you don't need molding that looks like this. You can use whatever kind of molding you want. You just have to know how the molding works. And I'll explain that more when we get to cutting it. I have a 6-foot piece. You really only need 3 foot, but once again, there's some wasted material, so I would get 4 foot, my opinion. But those are the things you will need to make exactly what I'm making if you're going to stick it to a wall. Refrigerator requires magnets. These I pick up at Home Depot. They are roughly $5.50 for 3 of them, and I use 6 of them. So that's another $10. You can do this entire project to hang it on a wall, not a refrigerator, because these up the price a lot. But you can do this entire project, buying the tools and everything, and hang it on a wall for probably under $40. So let's get into the first steps and make this video work. So the first thing I'm going to do is, this is not an exact square. Right now this is roughly, I cut it to about 12 inches by 12.5 inches, and it's because I had Home Depot rip down a sheet for this table here, and I had them cut off a 1 foot by 8 foot section for me, and now I cut them down to these chalkboard sizes. But you could have Home Depot just do all your cuts for you, and honestly, they might be a 1/16 of an inch off, but they are very nice clean cuts, I'll give them that. So I just have to cut to this line. I could take it over to my table saw and do this in one pass, but I'm lazy, and it's a lot easier to use the miter saw. But you could use a jigsaw, circular saw, hand saw, whatever, pocket knife saw. Whatever saw you have available, just make it as close to a square as possible. Okay, so I do not have a fine-tooth saw. So if you end up with a little bit of chip out, it's fine. Don't worry about it. One side's going to be the back of it, you're not even going to see it, and the other side will be covered up. So it's not a big deal at all. But we are on to step 2 right now, which is I'm going to, normally I would cut the molding first, but I feel like I should cut the bottom shelf first. So I'm going to trim off these 45s, make it a perfectly flat piece, and cut this to match one of the sides on here. So 1 foot, should be. Let's cut this one down. Alright, so the next step is I'm going to cut a rabbet. If you don't know what a rabbet is a step in a piece of wood. So I'll actually be taking this 1x3 and cutting a little step in it so it actually sits nicely with this piece. Do you need to do this? No. Could you screw directly into it? Absolutely. Do you even need to do this bottom shelf whatsoever? No. Am I going to do it? Yes. So all I'm going to do is take a pencil, put them on my tabletop, and just mark my line. Once I have my line marked, I can set this to the side for now. And I'm going to clamp this down. And the way I'm going to cut my rabbet is, I own a plunge router. If you do not own a plunge router, can you do this in other ways? Can you do it with a table saw? Yes, absolutely. There's videos everywhere on how to cut, framework stuff. I'm going to use the router. And I'm actually going to show you the way I do it, which a pro woodworker would probably absolutely hate me. But let's cut a rabbet. Mistake. What I do is I cut it down. You can see it's a little wavy, and I take a file. Most people cut before the line and then use a hammer and chisel to knock it out. I just suck at that. I've tried it before. It doesn't work for me. So I just take it like this, and I'll flatten it out this way. Okay, so I got hot down here. Took off my hoodie. But pretty much, I got the rabbet finished. Got it to line up pretty well. Next thing we need to do is we're going to cut a groove in here with the router so the chalk can sit in. Okay, so we have a nice uniform groove on each side, so I make a mark 2 inches in, and then I cut to that mark, and you'll see I went over it a little bit because the blade is a round blade. So I don't mind going over it a little bit. It may be a 32nd of an inch off, not a big deal. The reason why I picked 2 inches in is because if you work a 1x too much, they crack pretty easily. So I've had these crack on me before, and that's something I try to avoid. I don't want them to crack on me. So the last thing I'll do with this is I'll use the router to round over the edges, but you could do it by sandpaper. And all you're going to do is, rub the edge until it becomes round. So it's not a sharp thing. Okay, so it is another day, and on today's agenda, the first thing we're going to do is put the magnets in. So I'm going to take those 4-center bits, and I'm going to drill my holes, recess in some magnets, and move on from there. Okay, so I recommend using screws on the magnets. This will allow you to know when your glue is dry, when you can take the screw off the magnet, but the magnet stays. If you end up with a hole that is slightly crooked, all I'm going to do is hold pressure, because I don't want only the corner of the magnet touching the metal surface. I want the entire face of the magnet. Now, having a little bit of crookedness, not a big deal. This hole ended up being a lot, so I'm just going to hold it in place until it dries, and all the magnets are in. Now, I want to clear something up with other woodworking channels. That's something that annoys me. They talk about a lot of products that a non-woodworker wouldn't really know about. So if I said type bond, you guys may not know what I mean, but it's a type of wood glue. So one thing that annoyed me was the chemical name for super glue is cyroacrylate. I had to learn that for auto body many, many years ago, back when I was in school. So they referred to CA glue a lot. And for a while, I thought it was a very specific type of glue. Until I heard another YouTuber finally say, CA glue is super glue. It's just CA is cyroacrylate. So we'll clear that up. If you guys watch any woodworking videos, you'll hear them say CA glue a bunch. Okay, so we reached the final prep step, which is actually cutting the molding that will go around this. So if you were not going to do a bottom shelf, you will cut 4 pieces. But I'm doing a bottom shelf, so I'll only cut 3 pieces because I do not need that 4th one. When I said earlier in the video, you have to figure out how your molding works, I'm going to cut a 45-degree angle like this, turn my saw the other way, cut a 45-degree angle like that, slide the piece forward, rotate back the other way, and I'll have to waste at least an inch of it. If I do not do it like that, this will not be mitered in the right way to match up because of the 2 different edges. So you want to make sure you know how that's going to work with whatever molding you choose. But we're going to chop this up and get to finishing this project. Okay, we made it to the finishing stage now. So the way I finish, I'm going to be using the styrofoam because it'll be easy to pick up and get out of my way. But the way I do this, the order I choose to do it is I paint the chalkboard first, set it to the side, and then work on the moldings in the bottom shelf. And that allows the paint to have a flash time. If you don't know what a flash time is, it means that it dries a little bit, but not too much, and you're able to recoat without having to sand it. So I'll do 2 coats on this, and I think the bottle or the can says like 4 hours. I usually get 30 minutes, and I've never had an issue with it. But to make the chalkboard, I'll use this chalkboard paint. So this is Krylon chalkboard paint. You can pick it up at Home Depot. I also have a can of Rust-Oleum floating around. So those are the 2 brands that I know of you can get chalkboard paint. But before we paint it, we need to wipe it off. Now everybody will tell you use mineral spirits. Usually I just use a spray bottle and paper towel, and I wipe all the sawdust away. But let's get to painting. Real quick, I also like to mention, you can brush, you can roll around the paint, you can do whatever you want. My favorite thing to pick up is, I get these from Dollar Tree. I keep like 30 on hand at a time, especially when I'm doing these chalkboards. So it comes with a brush, a foam roller, a bad pair of gloves you could use if you want in the tray, and I love it. This is $1. So I'll brush it on, then roller it so I don't get any brush strokes, and it seems to work out perfectly fine. But enough talking, more painting. Okay, now that the painting is done, at least for now, we're going to move on to the moldings. Now, I burn my stuff, depending on what I'm doing. So, I like to burn wood. I think it comes out really nice. It really enriches the grain and gives it a really nice appealing. You can use a little pen torch. That's one way to do it. Or you can use a butane torch. Now, this is the easiest process ever. And the more you sand and the more you expose grain, the better it will look. So all I did is start grabbing scrap pieces of wood and start playing. And I learned if I can sand this and really show the grain and not keep a rough cut, then it looks really nice. With the exception, I'm not going to burn wood if I'm doing a dark stain. So when I burn wood, I'm usually using Early American Min-Max, because on dark stains the burn doesn't show up. You cover it up. So what's the point? If you're using a light stain though, I highly recommend this. So let's set some wood on fire. Disclaimer: if you have recently sanded your pieces of wood, make sure you get all of that dust off of it. Because if you think wood is flammable, wood dust is a million times more flammable. And you will get some flare-ups. I'll probably get it on this. I'm used to it. It's not a big deal. Hopefully we don't set this on fire, but let's burn some wood. Okay, I just want to show you what it looks like when you burn around a knot, because I think burning wood is very soothing and it looks really cool. Okay, I got all the pieces burnt, and I want to show you. This is what it looks like normally, without a burn. This is what it looks like with a burn. So it really adds just a layer to it. And I think it looks really nice. But now we're going to stain these up, let them dry, take a little bit of break, come back, paint the second coat on the chalkboard, and then we get to urethane these. So let's stain something. Okay, so stain complete. The can will tell you to let it sit on for 5 to 15 minutes. By the time I hit the last piece and I finish up the last piece, I'm already wiping it off the first piece. And it gives me a nice color. Any of the stains I've ever used. I even just recently did a test with a black stain that I let it sit for the full 15 minutes compared to 30 seconds. And the color was no different at all. So, got it stained. If you noticed the miter cuts, I stained them too. If you do not have the most accurate tools, or you do not have the most accurate eyes, stain inside your miters. Because especially when you're using something that looks like this compared to this, if you have a small gap, it will be very, very visible. So always do inside the miters, and it will keep you from seeing that, hopefully. The bottom shelf, I stained 2 of the edges and the top side of it. And then once I get to the end of this, I will just stain the rest of it once I wipe down those sides. Simple as that. And we're on to urethaning now. Alright, we are ready to urethane. I am just using Rust-Oleum 2x Ultra Cover Gloss Clear. Something as simple as that. It does wood, so that's why I use it. I do have another one actually sitting off camera because I run out of this one, which is not this, but this is what I'm using right now. It also recommends, and anything recommends, extremely well ventilation and a mask. I don't have any of that, which I really need to get a mask, but there is zero ventilation down here. There's no windows, nothing. So follow the directions. Don't follow me, but we're going to urethane. Alright, we let the urethane dry overnight, so 24 hours later, and my phone died the second I went to go film, so I decided just to assemble it and then do a brief overview of what I did because this video is already way too long. So I drilled in countersink and put in 3 screws to hold the bottom shelf to the actual main chalkboard body. Then I used Type Bond original wood glue. You could use any wood glue you want for the moldings, and I stuck those on with those, clamped it in place, and then Brad nailed them in. You could just leave the clamps on. You can just, push down with your fingers for a little bit and then let the wood glue dry. This stuff is way more than strong enough to just hold these in place since they hold no weight. Then 2 hooks in the top. When I drill the holes for the hooks, I then put in a little dab of super glue just to hold them in a little bit better. I now need to go bother my wife to braid a rope for me because I don't know how to braid. And this is completely done. So let's go bug her. I want to briefly talk about some things to potentially avoid or some things you could do depending on what you're doing. So the reason you see me use molding is because it reduces weight. This is the first chalkboard I made and it actually came out very nice, except it doesn't stick to refrigerators, which was like my main goal to do. It will stick to the dryer. Honestly, not that well either. As you can see, it does slide a little bit. But I got it to stick to the dryer, but it won't stick to the steepling on a refrigerator, so I had to trim weight off. That's why I'm using the moldings now. What I do like about this one, though, that none of the other ones I've done so far has, is I put this little peg in there to hold the eraser. So I like that little thing. But I wanted to also mention, I said earlier in the video, I was going to do something different. I ended up doing kind of the same thing, just in a different way. So I wanted to add keyholes in the back to mount it to the wall, but I really like the rope. I like how it looks. I think it adds to the look of the chalkboard, especially with the burn and the stain. So instead of putting fixed ends on here on the one we just made, I had my wife braid the rope and tie it in a different way. So let's show off the chalkboard. And that brings us to the end of this long video. If you stuck it out through all of it, I really do appreciate it. I would like to do more woodworking videos, but we'll have to see. My time is very minimum most of the time. But I'm happy how it came out. Hopefully I can actually sell one. But you never know. Have a great day, guys. Thank you for watching this video. Keep pushing forward. I just want to apologize how many times I said, okay, so after editing this, I want to slap myself. I really need to change up my vocabulary, but have a great day, guys.